platforms. We're live. We're back. The Light Magic team from our holidays. I hope everyone's had a great break. So we are a little bit rusty today. It's been a while since we've done a live. And we originally were going to have 4 of us, but Anne is experiencing some technical difficulties. So we're hoping that she's going to jump in at any time to be prepared for that. But in the meantime, we're here and we're hoping to provide some insight and some thought around what we're thinking about our hopes, fears, and predictions for AI in 2024. So, shall I introduce us? So I'm Sarah Davison from the Light Magic team. Tyler
Fisk from the Light Magic team. Yep.
Josh Houston from Light Magic.
So today we're talking about our ideas and our thoughts for 2024 with regard to AI and our hopes, fears, and predictions. So we're going to launch into that first, and then we're going to sort of riff a little bit more. So Tyler, you're first. What are your thoughts around hopes, fears, and predictions for AI in 2024?
Hopes. Okay, I got one for you. I'm super stoked on the Rabbit R1 that's coming out. It's taken, internet nerds by storm. I will say, I'm very proud and not ashamed to say this. I wish I would have bought more. I'm the proud owner of 4 Rabbits from the first sales cycle or whatever. So I'm hoping that thing delivers on what they say that it can, because to me, it looks like it could be the everything API. And what I mean by that is, in his demo, he showed training the system on how he prompts Midjourney photos. And then he just was able to vocally tell the assistant to go make a Midjourney photo in this style or whatever. Midjourney doesn't have an API at all. So A, if it can do that, it's freaking awesome. B, brilliant marketing move on his part, because Midjourney doesn't have an API, and he just attached himself to a unicorn company and that can do that for them. So that's pretty cool. I hope that works as advertised. Well, what else do we have? Fears. Okay, I don't want to get too negative on this, but I'm honestly concerned with all of what can be done now with Gen AI, with it being an election cycle year, and coupling that with the fact that FYPs on pretty much For You pages on pretty much every social platform are so tunneled into you and you don't realize it. Combine that in Gen AI, it could get weird really quickly this year. So I'm hoping that we don't realize that fear, but it's possible. Predictions. I think this is going to be the year of, it already is, but agents and assistants. I think we're going to see huge breakthroughs in that this year. And I think that we're going to see a real huge breakthrough on multimodal, in a big way. We've seen that some already, but with things coming out like Bland, and then you have an assistant that can be trained to help run those calls. Bland is the autonomous agent that can make phone calls for you. If you compare that with your company's knowledge base and an assistant trained on that, you can have an AI making live phone calls for you now and receiving. So that's just one example. I think lots of stuff like that's going to be coming out. Really exciting.
What about
you, Josh?
Ooh, okay. Hopes. My hope is that, and something I'm really excited about, the products that we oogled over when they launched, and then we jumped right into test, and that didn't deliver. We've had a full dev cycle of at least multiple agiles for these dev teams to capitalize on new technology improvements, new model upgrades. All these things are in motion in the background. And my hope is that some of these platforms that we've just been kind of looking over our shoulder at and hoping to get into production will be ready. 23 last year felt like a year of MVPs and testing in a lot of big platforms and big SaaS product launches. So I'm hopeful that 24 will be a year of let's put these things to work. And take them out of the lab and into our day-to-day, because there's so much promise, so much opportunity if those promises come by. And what Tyler said, with agents and all the above, like API level stuff, like everything has moved forward and time is exponentially making these things better. And we've already seen a couple of those that we're excited about. So that's my hope. I think my big fear for the year is thinking about, and we're already seeing this roll out, new year, companies are taking care of their Q1 layoffs and like offloading a bunch of people right now. And I think that's going to unfortunately continue. Like I'm fearful that it'll continue, but not in the way that like this is a natural part of business cycle, but like AI has kind of ramped this way up. Fearful that the people impacted will continue to look at companies and employers as the option, versus like other paths, like becoming a freelancer or joining an agency or gigging out your work. Like people are so, and for decades, like centuries, like people have been so reliant on other entities like businesses to provide their employment. Like I'm fearful that people will continue to look for jobs in places where they're not reopened. Like those layoffs may not ever be reopened.
Mm-hmm.
And that means there's just going to be a ton of people like on the sideline. And I hope, like my hope is that these people will run to, well, I'm skilled. I have things that I can do to help businesses, and businesses love working with freelancers. So the ability to spin up a business and go solve problems on an individual basis is like my optimistic side of that. But yeah, fearful that there's going to be a lot of people who are just like sitting in the water. Prediction, like I'm really hoping the next wave of model advancements simplify the product offerings across the board. Like we're seeing now with like Copilots launching and like different versions of that same type of enterprise solution where it's like everything I'm already doing with my business and the data I have, plus an AI tool that's now comprehensively involved on that like horizontal stack. So I'm looking forward to like a lot more people leaning into the horizontal solution, but then the vertically integrated solutions are just ramping up more and more. And I'm hoping that some new players come to the game to help make that like just building solutions more efficient. I think to Tyler's point about the Rabbit model and how they've taken a different approach to solution design, like training a model to behave and just use the app like we would, versus like having to go program it all together and connect everything with automation. Prediction is that automation will be like it's on everybody's tongue, and that by the end of the year we're gonna be laughing at the things that we used to like do manually without like an assistant or an automation. So there's a few predictions baked in there, but Sarah, let the people know. What do you think?
Let the people know. So I mean, it's hard to follow you both because you're both incredibly, you're incredible geniuses at these things, but I will give it a shot. So, so my hope is sort of a prediction as well, where I feel really great that we're seemingly starting to move out of the hype cycle. A lot to do with what you said, Josh, about all of these tools that are launching that are only getting us like part of the way there, and there's a bit of a lukewarm experience. I think we're going to see a lot of these tools and platforms and companies just go deeper in general on the technology. And I think that that's where we're going to see some real uplift in terms of the potential that we can get from AI and within our businesses and within the tools that we use and things like that. So I think that's pretty exciting. In terms of fears, now that you both have mentioned your fears, I feel that too. I will add to that another kind of viewpoint where we're again seeing a tectonic shift in how we're going to live and work, and who are the people who are going to be leading the decisions around that, and who's going to be represented in making those decisions. So I know that a lot of people that we work with are passionate about, uplifting the voices of people who have been marginalized and really wanting to bring them into the fold in the conversation around how these technologies evolve and how the entire population is considered, not like it's traditionally been. So that's one thing that's been on my mind, but I think both of you make good points about the election year and the future of work, considering what's happening right now with companies. predictions. Yes, both of you. I'm going to lean on both of you again because you made such great points around agents, around just being able to go deeper on the tools and the platforms we use. I think we've already seen it where things are becoming a lot more intuitive in terms of how we build out these solutions so they can be increasingly customized and personalized, but also easier to put together. So I think that the bar to what is going to be required to actually develop a custom solution for your business and for your needs is going to be a lot lower, which is exciting. So what do we want to riff on now that we've shared our hopes, dreams, and predictions?
So from the chat, we have Anne feeding us great trends in the data. PwC released a really good study recently, just going over AI impact and predictions for the year as it relates. And they did a really cool top-down approach that I think it's worth noting a couple points on. Looking at the CEOs and their perspective, pretty much across the board, majority are looking at AI, Gen AI especially, as something that they want to upskill their teams with. They're seeing the value, people are buying in both a practical way, but also on a strategic level. You have to, as a leader in your business, make these decisions that you're going to support your team moving this way. There's a lot of friction, I feel in some companies, and leaders not wanting to move in or not knowing what to do about rolling out AI for their team, and not to know if they should what sort of policies they should be having for their employees and the teams and the people they have, but also not knowing what can they do to improve their customer experience and the product that they offer and their services and all of that. So that might be a conversation, just open that can of worms to talk through. I think the big question is, what do business leaders need to do to get started so that they can first understand and then run, walk, jog, whatever the pace that they're comfortable with into the space in a way that's going to benefit them from the strategic level, but also thinking about their teams and the people they have. That's a huge resource.
Yeah.
Sarah, can you weigh in?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it feels like a lot of organizations, and this is backed by a recent study. I didn't realize how acute these numbers were, but it was a study that I think was issued Jan 11th this year from Boston Consulting Group, where they surveyed 1,700 business leaders around AI adoption and what's keeping them stuck, essentially. What is the difference between how the winners, what they're called the winners, are approaching it, who are already seeing the returns on investment, and the others who are being classified as the observers. And in a large part, what's keeping businesses stuck is this lack of direction and clarity on exactly like you said, Josh, where do we even start? It feels like this all-consuming thing. We recognize that it's going to impact how we do business, our teams, our operations, our customers. It's going to impact everything. And I think that could be a really overwhelming way to kind of view things and how you figure out where to even start, where I think a more effective approach for a lot of organizations, I realize that it might be different for enterprise than it is for small business, mid-market, but is to have your strategic objectives, but be able to approach it in a more modular sense where you know the steps that you need to take to get to where you want to go, but you don't have to do it all at once. And you can sort of contain the disruption that could happen in your business to one particular use case, one particular process. And then once you have mapped towards that and understand the dynamics of how that impacts, your teams and your workflows and your operations, then you can take that to the next level and be able to apply your understanding to larger projects and use cases. So the way that we like to approach it with clients is exactly like that, is to go, well, what are your pain points and your challenges, and how do we map how AI can solve that for you from the very low quick wins, but are also really acute problems in your business, to the more strategic things that you want to achieve by Q4 like this year, and then like showing them exactly how to get there step by step. So if you're interested in an approach like that, we are offering like an AI roadmap intensive, adoption intensive for 2024, where we actually map that process out for you after deeply consulting with you and understanding your business and your pain points and things like that. So anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you didn't shamelessly plug it, I was going to shamelessly plug the AI adoption intensive for sure. That's like the what that looks like. We've had several folks go through that already. It's basically we may or may not have already had a discovery call with you to already know some stuff about your business and do some prelim work there. Then we've got this really cool tool that we've been using, Formless AI, which is like, it's an AI chatbot. Surprise, like the intake to this intensive uses AI, and it's going to ask a bunch of questions so we can get a better understanding around your business, what your tech stack is, what the team's current abilities are, what sort of projects in the past, like AI completely aside. Anytime you come in and make a huge tectonic shift like this, like that's a big cultural change and process change. So have you done anything like that already in your business, and how did that go? Like, who are the people that we need to work with to like get them on, everyone rowing in the same direction essentially. And we'll take all of that and then turn that into like a roadmap or a blueprint that will then hop on the Zoom call with you and do just a consulting session of this is where we see, based off of everything we've learned about you all, of how AI can best help your organization. And then there we go, FaceTime call. Love it.
And I mute my computer over here.
Dude, you're good. But yeah, like we're essentially just going to help figure out and help do the work for you of the strategy side of things, because we've tested all of the tools, not all of them, but a ridiculous number of them. We have deployed a lot of this stuff for organizations and internally for ourselves. And so we're trying to help make adoption easier for you, because that's the thing I think is going to happen in 24 is the year of adoption. That's what we're already seeing. That's what these studies are pointing to. The real struggle that I see is it's overwhelming and people don't know what's possible, or they don't realize like what's the practical ways. Like, cool, I can go make Midjourney photos, or I can ask ChatGPT to make me a social media post that may or may not sound like me, but like, what else can it do? And we've been able to do some really, really cool things that I think most businesses would find useful. So as an example of that, we've got anytime someone comes to us through our discovery pipelines, we're running a workflow on them that looks that person up on the internet, on LinkedIn, their company, the industry it's in. It does a SWOT analysis on that. It maps it back to knowing like what we can do as a team, so that we have suggestions on that first call of like AI use cases that would make sense for them. So basically it's like our pre-meeting research. We've talked about it a lot. We've continued to refine that. But when we talk to customers about that and then show them what we've done, they're like, we need one of those. So like it would be a really helpful tool for any business that's doing sales, or which everyone has to sell something. So yeah, I don't know. Josh, what are you seeing as like the easiest low-hanging fruit for use cases?
Across the board, without a shadow of a doubt, it's the meeting assistants. Like the options that are coming, like if you use Zoom, there's a Zoom assistant now recording and transcribing, which they were already kind of using, but like now you can use that. There's Fathom, which we would love. There's Build Better. I'm just going to rattle off a bunch because none of them are paying us. There's Fireflies and others that are doing a great job. Otter, showing up to your meetings, taking notes, recording the conversation video as well, and then giving you a link at the end, whether they give it to you via email or in your Slack or whatever automations you connect to them, in a way that allows you to quickly recap, follow up, and do whatever extra items came from that call. Like I keep forgetting, like when you remember the early days of like end of 2022, Q3, Q4 over there when OpenAI released ChatGPT and all these people jumped on this like bandwagon. It's like the feeling at that time was like altitude sickness. Like it felt like things were moving so fast, things were going so high. Like at least for me, I felt like my mind was getting blown every week with a new product launch, a new like thing that I learned about, a new use case. And like the thing that's been the most consistent and shown up every single day for me has been the meeting assistants. And then we've tested all of them at this point. Fathom, in my mind, is the like winner because they have a free option that everybody can use. They have a great team plan they launched recently where you can share your meeting information together. And like I keep finding myself going back to those call recordings, looking through the notes, looking at action items that we discussed on the call, and then like doing my work way faster, or even just like getting that note over to the client or whoever I talked to say, hey, if you needed it, here's a recap and some details about like the conversation. You can go back and rewatch anything you'd like. Just being able to send a link that quickly, like I'm talking like 5-10 minutes now. I had somebody text me this week and was like, well, I'm not going to do the follow-up email if that's okay with you, because this is 10 times better. And it was fast. Like it was like, I would have come to you like tomorrow with my like version. So I think that's the most accessible one because it's there are free options. They all are, I would say all majority for legal purposes, doing a good job with data security, taking care of your information, like protecting your stuff. And changing the behavior, like a tangible outcome of using these tools is this was a fun little discovery we made this week on a random call. By having these assistants show up, you start to talk differently in calls.
Right.
Like you start to label parts of the conversation because you know it's going to give you a chapter. And it's like if you get on a tangent, you can just label the tangent and it not get pulled into the summary. Like all the like downfalls of leveraging like Gen AI for this can be kind of like you can impact it by just how you behave. So I haven't realized it like over time till it was obvious looking at someone who hadn't done this type of like use of this type of tool and it hadn't like infected their behavior yet. It was like, oh, well, we recommend you start talking in this way and doing these things. And like, it's just cool. Like it's a great use case to use as an example because it's accessible, but also shows like, it's an entry point into automation when a meeting assistant has action items that it wants to assign to your team. You can connect those dots now and throw those assignments into your project management tools and truly see like tasks get completed without anybody lifting a finger. And the biggest value out there is communication can then be shared in places that it wasn't being shared before. Like if I went to a meeting when I used to work at the government and I was the meeting note taker, I would not get to participate in the call because I was sitting there taking my notes, and then I'd have to spend an afternoon writing up my thoughts about the meeting, making sure I remembered all the details, which I never did, and then send an email out to everybody who couldn't make it and those who were there, and everybody would be like, yay, a follow-up email. But like the value wasn't like transferred.
It's so funny that you say that because right, at the beginning of the year, it was almost like annoying that you'd show up to a meeting and then there would be like all of these note takers, AI note takers, and there'd be like 50 of them on the call. But to your point about change of behavior. So Tyler and I were on a call yesterday and we had to kick out because of confidential, like NDA type conversation. We had to kick out the note taker. And I felt naked. I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, how do I refer back to this? Like, how do I absorb everything that's being said in this meeting and like be able to, use it after this meeting in a way that's effective? So it's so interesting how you say like that it's a good micro view of like the change in behavior that's possible with these AI tools once you start using them and really leveraging them, not just like having a note taker and then not referring to your notes, but then like you tie it to an automation, you use it for communication, you send it to a client. And then when you don't have that, you're like, okay, this feels odd.
It did. I thought that same thing yesterday in that call. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going back to this, which, takes me out of being like present in the call completely. But I mean, I've been using this for some note taker form or fashion for over a year for every meeting, almost every meeting, minus the ones like the one you're talking about, sorry, like where it's confidential and we can't have them in there. But the real thing that stacks up on that is that now we have a knowledge-based system with some of the different apps that we use, so that we can go in and ask questions, or even when we're writing emails. So I wrote an email. This is like before Christmas, for the break. It was, we'd had multiple meetings with this client in discovery. And as soon as the meeting finished, I jumped into Gmail just to go ahead and like send my follow-up email. Just, it's a habit now. And the tool that I used referenced transcripts that were stored in our knowledge base from every single meeting, footnotes it, so I know that it's not hallucinating. So it looks like I have perfect recall, and just like the most, it's which is not, but it's like, it's basically making a business second brain that's not only accessible to me, like I've made it accessible to all of our Light Magic team. So like we can go in and look at each other's notes or meetings or whatnot. That is huge. That's so big.
Yeah.
I love it. Can I put my branding hat on and explain the business case for this? Because what we just talked through was the progression of like, you add one tool that can change the way you behave on an individual level, but like by creating and adding that data now, like we have like all these transcripts of data and adding them to a knowledge base, not only can we recall and do follow up and provide a better like experience for the customer that we serve, we also now are creating an asset that the brand owns. And that's one of the focuses that we'll take when we look at like designing systems and process and looking at automations and helping transform and innovate a company from here to here, like where you were and where you want to be as an empowered, like AI engaged business. The part where we create processes is giving the business entity something it owns, which is like SOPs and documents that say, here's how we operate. And like in the world of selling businesses and building things that can scale out to the world, or businesses that could be sold in mergers and acquisitions land, like the processes, the systems, the documentation, the ops manuals, the knowledge base, all of that is what is considered as asset that you could create value and increase the value of the company. So looking at this from like a investment standpoint, like every little thing that you do in a company does have some impact on the brand. And when you start to automate storing information, sharing information across the board, connecting all these dots, like the business can gain so much value, and you have the opportunity to actually look at data and get insights from it, versus if you're just going about your business, you're not recording calls, like just transferring that information over time is going to take forever, and it may not ever happen. You may have teams that never talk to each other, but when you put an assistant in and it's looking across everything that's happening in the business and it can recall it and link to it and connect everything, now we're talking true value and something that we couldn't have years ago. We couldn't have last year in many cases at a high level. And we're talking to us as a small team. Like, this is a small business. We're not an enterprise with dev teams and integrators and solution partners. And like, this is like the everyday company that is the, vast majority of companies in the US and globally, I'm sure as well, with small businesses being like at the helm in terms of volume. Like, we have access to these tools, not just the big dogs. And that's a huge thing too, that we often don't talk through, but it's probably one of the biggest X factors now in business.
What do you think is the dynamic that's going to come as a result of this? Without putting like words in your mind around this, but thinking of like, I kind of think of it both ways. It could go both ways, where like enterprise level are data rich, so they've got all of that data that can be leveraged and can be like pulled together to create more value. But do they have the speed to be able to do that? And then you have like startups like us that are like hatching things together and making things work and creating value so quickly. Like, what is your thoughts, both of you, on like how the competitive landscape is going to change because of AI?
I'd say it really depends on the company culture, because we've talked to organizations of all shapes and sizes, from like Fortune 100 companies all the way down to like solopreneurs and everything in between. And so It's how willing they are to like actually implement and use these things. And just even because when we change gears here in a minute, like I would love to go like just continue down the downstream effects of just recording your meetings or just using transcriptions in general. Like I don't want to go too far in that rabbit hole yet. So sorry to answer your question. We've talked to some organizations that are quite large and still very agile. Like they've made this like a key focus, that they understand that this stuff is huge and the gains that they can get from it. I mean, they're like, we need to focus on this. We need to put this in. We need to figure it out. We're not going to get it right the first time. That's okay. We're going to learn from it and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. And the smaller guys, like, because we're a team of 6, we're able to punch way above our weight. So like, just as an example, from the meeting transcripts, when we have meetings with clients, they might say something. So when our team is working on delivering their project at 11 p.m. at night, when I'm trying to get some stuff done, and I'm like, they said this thing in the meeting and I can't remember what it was, like about their tech stack or whatever that was. And so I can just go into our system and be like, what did they say about this? And spits it right back to me. So that doesn't sound like a big deal, but without that turns into an email or a phone call. And now that puts me like a day behind from being able to actually deliver that thing versus like I got my answer that night when I was working on it. And that's huge. So I think it's going to be about the culture around it, because we've also talked to some big organizations that they want to do it, but their culture doesn't necessarily allow for that easily. And there's still people within that organization that are fighting very hard for it because they see the writing on the wall. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to some folks that are smaller companies that just I don't think they fully realize why yet they need to, because we are still so early and we're in this echo chamber because this is what we do. I think that there's a lot of small businesses that still just do not know. Like I talked to so many people over the holiday break that have not heard the word ChatGPT uttered ever in their life. And I was like, what? Like, how is that possible? Anyway, yeah. What do you think, Josh?
Oh, lots of things. Thinking specifically on your point, Sarah, it's the weight class thing, right? Like agility is often the thing that allows for like innovation. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in big companies, you've got people, really smart people who are on both sides of the spectrum. Like some really want to do things, some don't. Some want to change, some don't. Yeah. And personality, it goes down to like the very lowest level, like on an individual basis. What is your appetite for change? What is your appetite for innovation? What is your appetite for shaking up the way you behave every day? Like that's like at the bottom of everything. And so I think for companies that are leaning in right now, like I work with a lot of service companies in the creative space, agencies, consultants, those sorts of people. And when we talk to these people, they're punching above their weight class with AI systems now. They're able to automate follow-up, proposals, document gen, like all these different parts and pieces that allow them to focus on delivering value, which would be either strategy and ideas or creative deliverables or this, that, and the other. That whatever they're working on now, we can look at each of these tasks and box it into like, all right, is the way you're doing it something you enjoy? Like we start at this enjoyment level, which like you've never been able to ask that in business. Like, do you like your day to day and all the tasks that you do? It's like most people would have some like minority maybe of the tasking that they want to be doing. There's always people who are like, I'm in a dream job, I love it all. And it's like, that's awesome, we love it for you. But most people are in this other like, I guess, balance where you do some of the things because you have to, and you do like repeatable admin related things because it's what moves things forward. But it's not because you enjoy it, and it's not because you're like, this is what you woke up today to like go and accomplish in the world. And so I think it's going to challenge, like it's challenging the way people think about their day to day. Like the way people work is being like assessed now, and people can think for themselves, like, what would I like to assign to ChatGPT and go do a little dance with the chatbot for, versus like sit there and like pluck it out on my own. Like I shared a use case recently about like translating a service agreement from like legalese and what lawyers would say is like the right words to like an agreement that a freelancer could actually read and understand himself and didn't have to hire a lawyer for. So it's like we started with the lawyer approved document and just made it readable. And to a solopreneur guy, like that was all the difference. He's like, well, now I'm happy to use an agreement versus nothing. And I'm like, well, this is good. Right. So it allows us to give things also to like smaller businesses and people as individuals who are freelancers that would never have access to the tools. Like they would never have a researcher. They might not ever get to the point where they have an assistant. They may not have like a team of people in the background doing all this stuff with them or for them. Now all these things are possible when you can look at, well, what's it look like to have 50 assistants working for you, and they all do a couple things very well, and they start to talk to each other, and they start to get smart with your knowledge base, and like all the things that you do to make your service special and unique and valuable can be enhanced because you can give attention to the things that matter the most as the human in the loop and as the person who cares about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
that's hilarious about the lawyer translation. I told Dara that I did a thing here. This was last year, near the end of the year. We were in a call and they said they were speaking so much industry jargon and so many acronyms and so many corporate buzzwords that I felt like I needed a translator. And so we hear translation, and I've seen like funny TikToks about this of like translating something so a boomer can understand it, or translating a boomer into Gen Z or whatever, you know. I had it translate like not corporate, but like industry speak. And so I was like, break this down to me. Like I know nothing about what they're talking about. And it fabulously did it. You know, that's so funny when that happens.
Yeah. But that is what, at least in terms of like the GPT models, like that is what they're best at. And I think it's often lost on people, like, because you can push it so far, you can make it do all sorts of cool stuff. But like the translate from this to that is like, that's the bread and butter of these models. And in business, oftentimes we all speak a little bit different languages, right? We all have different meanings for words. If you ever cannonball into like the marketing industry, like it's like a cesspool of definition. Like you can never Google search like what is brand strategy. If you just did that, you're gonna find 100 definitions from people, and they're gonna say, "Well, mine is this way, and I say these words because of that."
Yeah, it's
just not. And it's all contextual, right? But you can go into GPT and be like, hey, let me define this for this context. And it's like, got it. And it gives you the answer that you need. Like those sorts of things are like, I mean, they're baby steps into that tool, but the value you receive from it is immense.
Yeah.
I think even in like a year and a half after GPT launched, like we still talk to people who haven't heard of it and they're still exploring. Like there are people who are going to take their first steps in there like now. And that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to keep that perspective.
Yeah, it is like, and I think, you know, a year on from the big hype cycle, I'm not sure if we're past it yet, but I think one of the things that's been great that's been coming out is like, and also a reality check for us who are in this echo chamber, is all these studies that are coming out around, you know, AI adoption and challenges and things like that. And so I want to get you both of your kind of reactions on this. So there was a Deloitte study that said, you know, that 1 in 5 C-suite execs, only 1 in 5 feel prepared to address the AI skills that are needed within the organization. There's another study that came out, this was the BCG one again, which said that 75% of the 1,700 execs, something around that number, recognize AI as a top 3 priority for them, but then only 6% of those have been able to achieve training and skills development within an organization for like 25% of their organization or more. So what is your sort of gut reaction on those statistics, both of you?
Sounds about right. Like I think most leaders know they need to do something and want to do something, but it's both like a supply demand issue and also where do you get the quality of like training in my mind. So shameless plug here, not for us, the AI Exchange where we all met. Like Rachel Woods and her team have built like an amazing training course over there that is a great place to start, and they're doing it for to basically get people into the flow of using AI and how do you actually use this stuff. So definitely go check that out. The next step I would say is find consultants, like either in your industry or the department you're trying to look to work with, to bring them in that actually know their stuff. And how do you test for that, right? Like that's right now, it seems like there's a lot of folks that they're putting enough information out there. You can pretty much sort who really knows and who's just like posting stuff, you know? But yeah, having that to also host like internal team trainings. That's something that we do. Like we can come into your team as part of like the strategy work, like do strategy, do training, and do the deliverables on so that you're not having to wait so long to get up to speed. Because that is the other point I would say is that it seems that people take about 6 months of doing this stuff every day, like practicing actually how to interact with these things to not only like change your habits, but know how to effectively use the tools before they hit that tipping point. And then you're really going to you're going to hit the metal to the pedal. But waiting for 6 months and the way that things are moving right now, like GPT-5 will probably be out in 6 months. So that's where we're like the way that we're approaching working with clients is we're doing both. We're doing strategy, we're doing training if they want it, and we're doing like the done for you also. But it's conversations that you need to have, the culture that you need to have in place, and the strategy for like when people say governance, that means a lot of different things. Like how are you going to ethically deploy this in your organization? What's your plan for like once we put these things into place and you have all this free time, what are all those employees going to do now? Because that directly relates back to adoption, because your employees aren't going to want to do this if they don't feel safe and sound that you're going to immediately cut them or replace them or reduce their hours or whatever. So it's about these very like difficult conversations. Like I'm constantly quoting Tim Ferriss of like your life can amount to the number of difficult conversations you're willing to have. This is one of those, and it's going to be leadership and the team. So that's my thought on it.
What about you, Josh?
That was like just a great response. Great ideas. The thing that stood out to me, Tyler, as you were talking, it's like there's a combo of things happening. One, you need business leaders to understand the language of not just AI, but technology, because everything happens through tech. And I don't know, I've just observed and seen and heard from like IT leadership that like there's always bridges and gaps between IT and business, and they don't speak the same language and they don't always understand or support each other. There's like a component there because the tech is what's going to move this forward. But then helping your people on the team speak the language of business. Like if people are used to just working and they're not thinking about like how does my job and the things that I accomplish, the projects that I do impact like our model as a company. If your people are not aware of the model and they're not like tuned in and they're not supportive of it, they're not going to add momentum, which I think is the main thing, like momentum to this whole like opportunity. And the fact that you could do consulting and then do deliverable work and deploy your own solutions is great. But without the team training component, you're missing the opportunity to engage all the people who know the most about your company and who have boots on the ground every day and could give great ideas about automation, insight, if they just were equipped with process language, with the skill sets to think about their work in terms of systems and then connect those systems to the business model. Like you start to guide them through this process while they're upskilling with like how they behave and how they interact with AI technology themselves. You get momentum when you loop everybody in. And that's, I think, the thing we've seen from like just the community aspect, like the fact we all met in AI Exchange. There's this interesting corner of the world where all these people who are trying to figure this stuff out exist. And just by brushing shoulders with people and bumping into folks, like you share ideas, you discover new opportunities, you like find like what new ways of doing the same thing or dozens of ways to do the same thing. And those like insights allow you to move forward and progress. And like if you had everybody on your team making progress individually and collectively on this, like your company's different in a year. Like that's the reality. Yes. And if they're bought in, then people are going to be more open to like changing the way they work. And like behavioral change is a huge part of this, like change management, and we call it change stewardship at Light Magic, like is such a like necessary but like honored process because you're messing with people's day. But I think that's the important piece is like unlocking the team, because a lot of companies are thinking about this from like well, what can leadership decide at a strategic level that would like save costs and drive efficiency? And when you start that angle in that way, you're missing the fact that you have human capital, like people that know great stuff about your business. You have A players that love to buy in, people that you can champion within their teams. And
yeah,
I gotta follow this down across the whole team. Like that's, I think, the biggest piece is just momentum that you get when all those parts come together.
Yeah, I really love that thought about like for enabling change from the inside out. You know, it's bringing people like us to give your people the tools to be able to create the innovation and create the like momentum that you want to see and the objectives that you want to achieve within your business from the inside out. So I really love that thought process. Yeah, I really love this chat. It's like all the magic of Light Magic coming back online again.
only half the magic.
That's right. Only half the magic. So any final thoughts from you two before we close off for today?
I really love your point there at the end, Josh, about that, like your team knows more about your business and all the inner workings. So it's really about, if you haven't started yet as an organization, or if you've been starting, it's about being okay with getting into this very uncomfortable position of stuff is changing rapidly, and we need to create the culture that is okay with that and agile enough to deal with that, and empowering your team to understand these tools now that ultimately everyone can win together. Because that's where we've seen the best outputs that we've done is when we match what we understand with AI with what our customer understands about their business, and putting those things together. Like the output is so much better than if just the AI person is doing it. And it gives them so much like capability and capacity and all these things when we're able to give them the tool set on top of their knowledge set. So that's my closing thoughts, I guess, is just that to start, be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, or being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And and I don't think this is avoidable. It's not I'm not going to say I don't think it's not avoidable. Either you're going to adapt or die, not in a really bad way, but I'm just, like there's other businesses out here that are doing this stuff. So it's something that's just going to become 5 years from now, AI is going to be as normal as, do you have an internet connection for your company? Yeah, you do. 100%. Don't even think about it.
That's right. And it's like helping you choose between being unstoppable as an organization with leveraging AI and how you can leverage intelligence at scale instead of being obsolete. I don't like doing the tough love, but sometimes I have to. So there you go.
Love it. No, intelligence at scale. That's like put a stamp on it.
Oh, is that a mic drop moment?
Yeah. I don't have a button to click, but like.
Yeah. Oh, we need
Hunter
either. For that.
Yeah, we need the laser beams. Wait, hold on. The technology here of reactions of, where's it at? Here we go. No, that's fireworks. This is what I was looking for.
I'll settle for the fireworks.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a bit of insight into our Light Magic meetups. So there you go. Anything from you, Josh, before we close off today?
No, I think you hit it on the head. Like 2024 is a year of intelligence at scale, and we're going to see it on so many different levels with so many different angles and so many different cool platforms, tools, technologies that are moving forward. And like, we're here to experience the ups, the downs, the all arounds. Like that's we're here for it. So if you're questioning, if you're a business person, you're a leader, you're a worker, and you're questioning, like, where do I begin? What do I do? How do I get started? The intensive is the easy way in.
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation. We'll get to know your business. We'll help you sort out what are the right steps, because building, buying, some combination of those, and training, and like those are all the things that you need to figure out for your team and your business. You understand your company better than anybody else. We understand AI, and we're here to help.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. And if there's any questions where you feel like I don't quite understand if this is right for me, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure if anyone else over here you resonate with more, it doesn't matter. We're all a team. So feel free to reach out to us. And yeah, we hope to be able to be on this journey with you in 2024. It's going to be one heck of a ride, that's for sure.
That's the truth.
All right, everybody. We'll see you. When are we next doing a live? Does anybody have the TLDR on that?
This time next week, we'll be here, same time, same place. If you want to hang out with a bunch of AI people, Zoom on Fridays, we do a show we call Bites and Banners, where we all hop into Zoom and we just chit chat. We talk about what's happening in the AI news world. We talk about cool use cases, fun stuff we're working on, shameless plugs, all the above. So we'll post a link on LinkedIn. Someone will all be out there. But yeah, that's, I think, our next steps. We'll see you out there, everybody.
Brilliant. All right, everyone. Have an excellent rest of your day. We'll catch up soon.
See you all on the Slacks.
See you in the Slacks.